In 1942, Hervey Cleckley published his seminal tome, The Mask of Sanity. This is, to this very day, the best description of the dual nature of narcissists and psychopaths. Outwardly, they're completely normal, sometimes pillars of the community, high functioning. Inwardly, they're a mess, chaotic, tumultuous, and rejecting of life. He called it the mask of sanity. Narcissists invest a lot of effort and psychic energy, cathexis, in appearing to be normal. They want everyone to think that they're normal because deep inside, they suspect that something is wrong with them, that they're insane, unconsciously maybe. And so this is reaction formation. Narcissists reject their own deformities, their own deficiencies, their own vulnerabilities, their own weaknesses. And they reject them by pretending to be exactly the opposite. Totally normal, highly functional, high achievers, accomplished, based in the community, pro-social, and so on. This is what I call the mask of normalcy. And this is the topic of today's video. My name is Sam Vaknin. I am the author of Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited, and the completely normal professor of psychology in the Commonwealth Institute in Cambridge, the United Kingdom. Okay, Shoshanim, let's delve right in. Cleckley used the word mask. In ancient Greece, in ancient Greek, the word for mask is persona. And this is the word that Jung used in his analytic psychology. Carl Jung suggested that we have two faces. There's the public face. The public face is presented by the individual to the outside world. It's the public-facing face, if you wish. And there's another face. It is deeply rooted. It is the authentic personality, and it has its own characteristics and traits which are distinguishable and different to the characteristics and traits of the public face. So we all juggle these two faces. When we go outside to the world, we wear a mask, the persona. Irving Goffman elaborated on this. And when we are at home, among our nearest and dearest in intimate circumstances, we drop the pretense. We stop acting. We become exactly who we are. And so the mask worn by actors in ancient Greece and Roman antiquity, this persona, is one of the key characteristics of pathological narcissism. In pathological narcissism, the narcissist is the mask. Unlike healthy, normal people who put on the mask when they exit home and take it off when they return, the narcissist is always the mask. He is always wearing the mask. To the extent that the mask had become himself. And when he is alone, or when he is with intimates, or when he is surrounded by fans, followers, admirers, and so on, regardless of the environment, regardless of circumstances, regardless of the people he's surrounded with, he is always wearing the mask. Now, mind you, there are situations such as extreme narcissistic injury, narcissistic mortification, narcissistic collapse. In all these situations, the mask slips. But when it falls, when it slips away, when it dissipates and disappears and dissolves, what's left behind is not a human being, but an absence, a void, what Tustin called a black hole. Now, narcissism, pathological narcissism, is an inversion of health. Whatever you observe in healthy people, just presume the opposite, and you get a trait or a characteristic or a clinical feature of pathological narcissism. Whatever, the whole list. The whole list of characteristics and traits and behaviors and cognitions and emotions and affects and processes of healthy people, just the mirror image is what we call the narcissist. Similarly, the narcissist has two constituencies. Every human being does. We all have our in-group and our out-group. In the in-group, there are nearest and dearest, loved ones, intimate partners, our children, our community, perhaps co-workers in our workplace, and so on and so forth. People we share a hobby with. This is the in-group. And the out-group is everybody else. The out-group is all the strangers. Now, every healthy, normal person has an in-group and an out-group. And usually what happens is, as a healthy, normal person, you would tend to behave in one way with members of the in-group and another way with members of the out-group. You would tend to be a lot more compassionate and affectionate and empathic and understanding and embracing and accepting, and you would tend to afford support and succor. You would tend to be there. You would tend to be present. You would tend to interact much more intimately and intricately with the members of the in-group. We say in psychology that you're more integrated into the in-group, whereas the out-group, being composed mostly of strangers, the out-group merits caution, vigilance. You would be a lot more reserved, a lot less forthcoming. You would tend to keep your distance. You would tend to observe rather than participate. The out-group represents a potential threat, whereas the in-group is the secure base. It's an extension of the mother's secure base. It feels safe. This is with normal, healthy people. What did I say earlier? Pathological narcissism is the mirror of normal, healthy people. And so, in pathological narcissism, the roles and behaviors are reversed. The in-group and the out-group are inverted. Nearest and dearest, intimate ones, loved ones, or so-called loved ones, friends, family members, girlfriends, boyfriends, children, parish, workplace, people the narcissist interacts with habitually and regularly, people the narcissist is supposed to have intimacy with, supposed to be vulnerable with, these people are the enemy. They are the out-group. Whereas strangers, all strangers, are the in-group. Now we observe a similar inversion in empathy when we're intoxicated. People who imbibed inordinate amounts of alcohol, they're highly intoxicated, they tend to empathize more with strangers than with their nearest and dearest and loved ones. That's a fact. So there is this inversion with alcohol, and there is this inversion on a permanent basis with a pathological narcissism. But why is that? Why does the narcissist reject, humiliate, shame, abuse, mistreat his nearest and dearest, whereas he extends courtesies and attention and imitated, mimicked empathy and compassion and affection to strangers? Why invest all your mental resources, all your cathexis? Why cathect strangers and decathect? Take away your mental energy from your loved ones. Why redirect yourself towards strangers and ignore the very people who love you, who care for you, who have your best interests in mind? There's a very logical reason for that, and the narcissist's behavior is utterly rational. Remember that the narcissist is in pursuit of narcissistic supply and nothing else. That's the only goal in the narcissist's life. Only strangers can offer the narcissist supply, whereas intimate people can injure the narcissist and mortify the narcissist because they are fully aware of the narcissist's vulnerabilities, weaknesses, deficiencies, and frailties. In other words, people the narcissist is intimate with, people the narcissist shares his life with, people who are exposed to the narcissist, people who have been in the position to observe the narcissist in the long term, these people know a lot about the narcissist, and they can emotionally blackmail the narcissist somehow. They can, at the very least, humiliate and shame the narcissist, criticize the narcissist, disagree with the narcissist. People who possess information about the narcissist's behaviors, traits, choices, decisions, these people are the enemy. These people can induce injuries and mortifications, whereas strangers cannot. Strangers are subjected to a charm offensive, superficial charm. Strangers are very likely to become sources of narcissistic supply. Strangers afford or provide gratification, whereas loved ones, intimate ones, represent a risk. And that is why the narcissist tends to fend off and push away those in his in-group, those in the inner circle, and cultivate and ingratiate himself with strangers. Similar reversals happen across the spectrum of narcissistic, of affect and emotions and cognitions in narcissists. Everything is mirror imaged. Everything is chiral in a way. Everything is, I mean, left is right, right is left. It's all very, very confusing. Consider, for example, what is known as fundamental attribution or error. Horror, actually, also. Fundamental attribution error. First, the definition. In attribution theory, the fundamental attribution error is the tendency to overestimate the degree to which an individual's behavior is determined by their abiding personal characteristics, attitudes, beliefs, and so on. So, in attribution theory, when you observe someone doing something, you attribute their actions to who they are, to their essence, to their core identity, to their characteristics, attitudes, beliefs, motivations, and so on and so forth. You say they behave this way because of who they are. They behave this way because of what makes them them. And this is an overestimate of this linkage. This linkage is overestimated, and it's known as fundamental attribution error. At the same time, you minimize the influence of the surrounding situation on their behaviors. So you would see someone stealing bread from a grocery shop, and you would say they're stealing bread because they're evil people, or they are ill brought up, or they are stupid, or you would attribute the action of stealing bread to their nature, rather than saying he's stealing bread because he is under financial or social pressure. He doesn't have enough money to buy bread for his family. So you would minimize the environmental pressures. You would minimize the situational factors, and you would overestimate or maximize the quiddity of the person, the essence of the person, alleged essence. You would attribute essence to the person. And this is known as fundamental attribution error. Fundamental attribution errors are more common in some societies than others. I will not go into all this. You can read more about correspondence bias, over-attribution bias, and so on and so forth, and even ultimate attribution error. These are all subjects I've dealt with in other videos. The whole thing was first described by social psychologist Lee Ross, American social psychologist. So this is fundamental attribution error. With the narcissist, there is reverse fundamental attribution error. Remember, the narcissist is a mirror. Everything is a mask. Normalcy is abnormal. Attribution errors are reversed. Everything, in-group becomes out-group. Out-group becomes in-group. Everything is completely mirror imaged. And so when narcissists reverse the attribution error, they tend to overestimate situational impact on behaviors. So they tend to see someone doing something, and they would say he is doing it because of his environment, his situation, people around him, and so on and so forth. And they would tend to underestimate personal characteristics, traits, qualities, beliefs, attitudes, values, and so on. They would tend to do this especially when it comes to themselves. Because remember, narcissists do not perceive other people. as external or separate. They perceive other people as internal objects. So they would apply reverse fundamental attribution error to themselves first and foremost. They would say, I did what I did because I had no choice. I found myself in a situation that led me to do what I did inexorably. I did what I did because of social pressures or financial exigencies. I did what I did because anyone and everyone would have done the same. Not because of who I am, not because of my traits, characteristics, deficiencies, attitudes, beliefs, values. None of this, not because of my identity. I did what I did because I had no choice, no other choice. So this is a reverse fundamental attribution error. And because the narcissist tends to see himself this way, he would also tend to see other people this way. Other people is an insufficient language in the case of narcissism, because they're not other, they're internalized. They are figments in the narcissist's mind, and sometimes fantasy or imagination. So the narcissist would tend to interpret the world as externally controlled from the outside. Narcissist, in other words, has an external locus of control. And when the narcissist observes events in the world, he immediately attributes these events to himself or to herself. We'll come to it in a minute. Everything revolves around the narcissist. He's not only the center of the world, he is the world. And so other people are just props, elements in his theater production, actors in his movie. And because he knows no other way as far as the attribution error, he completely attributes his actions and especially his misconduct and misdeeds to external circumstances and to other people, then this is how he sees the world more generally. And this is because the narcissist regards himself as the be-all and end-all. So, before we come to that, if you ask a narcissist, why did this person do this? Why did this person make this choice? Why did this person choose this course of action? Why did this person end up acting the way they did? And so on and so forth. The narcissist would tend to engage in fundamental attribution error. He would tend to say, because that person is evil, or that person is stupid. Narcissists have contempt for other people. But this applies only to strangers. This applies to, not to strangers, but this applies to people who have not been internalized by the narcissist. The minute someone is internalized by the narcissist, the fundamental attribution error is reversed, and there is an external locus of control. Everything that's happening to the narcissist and to the internal objects in the narcissist's mind that represent significant others outside, significant people, everything that happens to him, to himself or to herself, and to these people who are already captured within his mind, everything then is subject to reverse fundamental attribution error. Everything is happening to him or to her and to these other people, highly selected, internalized, introjected people. Everything that's happening to all this group is coming from the outside. So the narcissist would tend to say, for example, I'm the subject of a conspiracy, people envy me, they're out to get me and take me down, and not only me, but my family members also. My wife didn't get the job because people hate me. My children failed their exams because the teacher hates me or envies me. So everything is coming from the outside. But of course, if the narcissist is asked about Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump, he will engage in classic fundamental attribution error. He will say Donald Trump is a narcissist, or Vladimir Putin is evil. I want to clarify this. Reverse fundamental attribution error applies only to other people who are internalized within the narcissistic mental space, within the narcissist's mind. Okay? Now, the narcissist regards himself and this galaxy of internal objects in his mind, which represents other people. The narcissist regards all these complex, the narcissistic complex, as the center of the world, the pivot, the axis around which the entire universe revolves. It's not that the narcissist is stupid or irrational. The narcissist knows that it's not. He knows rationally, he knows objectively, neutrally that it's not true. He may be a social scientist, he may be a professor of psychology. He knows that he is not the center of the universe, of the world, of history, of his society or culture or whatever. But that is the cognitive level. On the unconscious level, the narcissist does perceive himself as the sine qua non of the world, the entity without which there is no world. The world exists inside the narcissist's mind. This is a cognitive distortion or a defense mechanism. There's a debate known as hyperreflexivity. This is also common in psychotic disorders. The psychotic annexes the world, digests the world. The psychotic conflates his own mind with the world. And so, because the narcissist regards himself as the world, you know the famous narcissistic song, "We Are the World"? So he regards himself as the world. Narcissists have something called referential attitude. Referential attitude, according to the American Psychological Association dictionary, is this: an expectancy attitude, sometimes observed in certain individuals with schizophrenia or other forms of psychopathology, who are seeking justification via environmental aspects for their ideas of reference or delusions of reference. Now, what are ideas of reference or delusions of reference? This is a group of psychopathological clinical features. They're very common in psychosis, but not only in psychosis, definitely. People with bipolar disorder, people with paranoid personality disorder, people with narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, they all have ideas of reference or referential ideation, not delusions of reference, which are common only in psychosis, but ideas of reference. It's a spurious, erroneous sense of self-reference in otherwise neutral events in one's immediate environment. Typical presentations include feelings of being talked about, gossiped about, mocked, receiving hints, or being targeted in the mass media or in personal communications. And so, let's break it down. The narcissist believes himself to be the center of attention, the axis and pivot around which the entire world, or at least his world, revolves. That means that everyone is interested in him and in him only. Everyone is mocking him behind his back. Everyone is gossiping about him. Everyone is talking about him. Everyone is analyzing him. Everyone is trying to predict his next actions, choices, and decisions. Everyone is criticizing him. Everyone is admiring him. Everyone's attention is focused on him or her, on the narcissist. Of course, it's a form of self-supply. The belief that you're the center of attention is very gratifying and constitutes in itself a form of narcissistic supply. But it's wrong. It's objectively wrong. It's not true. And that's why we call it ideas of reference or referential ideation. It's just an idea. It's not reality. And so narcissists have this referential ideation. But because narcissists are basically hypervigilant, they scan the environment for insults and slides and criticism and disagreement and hostile intent and paranoid ideation and imminent attacks and injuries and mortification. Their attitude is negative. Narcissism is characterized by negative affectivity according to the International Classification of Diseases. And so narcissists are constantly envious, constantly angry, constantly hateful, constantly rageful, constantly resentful, constantly bitter, and constantly, of course, either passive-aggressive if they are covert or aggressive if they are overt. It's a lot of negativity. And this negativity colors the ideas of reference, colors the referential ideation. The narcissist's referential attitude is the belief that he is the center of malign intention, malevolent intention, malicious intention, conspiratorial attention and intention, that he is being mocked or ridiculed or hated or criticized or disagreed or gossiped on or talked about in a negative way. Very rarely the narcissist would attribute positive effects and positive attitudes to other people. Sometimes the narcissist would deceive himself into believing that he's being admired and adored and adulated. That is also pretty common. But these flashes of positivity don't survive in the enormous ocean of negativity. The narcissist attributes, therefore, everything to the environment and especially to other people. The narcissist perceives himself more or less as an inert, passive object, lacking agency. And that's the irony in pathological narcissism. On the one hand, the narcissist presents himself as godlike, a divinity, perfection reified, an entity which is omniscient and omnipotent and brilliant and genius and maybe handsome or whatever. So the narcissist is always perfect on the one hand, always godlike. But on the other hand, the real perception of the narcissist, the self-perception of the narcissist, is as someone who is at the mercy of other people. Someone who is inert, someone who is passive, someone who is a receptacle, recipient, and container of other people's intentions, which are often malign because they envy him, or they hate him, or they misunderstand him, or they compete with him, or whatever. So the narcissist has this sequence. Referential attitude. My life is determined by the environment. Yes. Everything that's happening, all my decisions and choices and so on, they're because of the environment, because of other people, and generally speaking, the misdeeds or misconduct of other people. And then there is referential ideation. These very people who have made me do it, these very people who have provoked me, pushed me, humiliated me, denigrated me, shamed me into action, these very people who colluded and conspired against me, these very people who underestimate me, these very people who make sure that I don't get my due, these very people are also constantly talking about me, constantly mocking and ridiculing me, constantly seeking to undermine me and entrap me. These people, I am the center of their attention, I'm the focus of their world, and this is referential ideation. But because there is negative affectivity in narcissism, there's also something called hostile attribution bias. Hostile attribution bias is simply the belief that you are the center of other people's hostile attention, malevolent intent. You're a victim, in other words. This whole worldview, this external locus of control, my life is determined from the outside, also leads the narcissist to paranoia and to a self-concept or self-perception as the victim of other people, of other forces, of institutions and collectives and so on. Hostile attribution bias is, I'm quoting from the dictionary, a general tendency to ascribe harmful or otherwise adverse intent to the ambiguous behavior of others. For example, a child who insists that another child bumped into her on the school playground on purpose, when the action, in fact, was accidental. That is demonstrating a hostile attribution bias. An employee who claims that his name was deliberately left off the distribution list for a recent memo, despite co-worker assurances that the error was inadvertent. In other words, there's no acceptance of incidents. Nothing is incidental. Accident, nothing is accidental. Happenstance, randomness, chance, human error, none of this is accepted. It's all intentional. It's all deliberate. It's all intended to harm the narcissist. In the narcissist's mind, everyone is a potential or actual enemy. Everyone is hostile attribution bias. Everyone is colluding and conspiring and planning to take him down and destroy him. That is referential ideation. And the general attitude is, consequently, because everyone is against me, the whole world is against me, there's little I can do. Even though I'm omnipotent, even though I'm godlike, well, wasn't God crucified? I am about to be crucified. I'm the new Jesus. I'm the new Savior and Messiah, and so on and so forth. This cognitive distortion is associated with such phenomena as aggression, conduct disorders, narcissism, and externalization. It was first described in 1979 by personality psychologist William Nasby, and with contributions by clinical psychologist Brian Hayden and social psychologist Bella De Paulo. So this is the narcissist world, a world of mirrors, a hall of mirrors, where everything is inverted, everything is reversed, and self-concept contradicts the perception of reality, contradicts reality testing, where the narcissist's way of seeing the world, the narcissist's theory of mind, theory about what makes other people tick, and the narcissist's internal working models about relationships with other people, all these are actually highly paranoid, highly suspicious, infused with suspicion, hypervigilant, on the alert, flight or fight kind of thing. Narcissist is constantly on his toes or her toes, awaiting the inevitable sword to fall. There's a sense of imminent, all-pervasive, all-permeating threat, atmospheric, ambient threat, and constant alertness. And in this world, the narcissist is an object, is a victim. And while the self-concept informs the narcissist that he is all-powerful, all-knowing, godlike, divine. And this is the irreconcilable dissonance within the narcissist, which gives rise to anxiety and, in extreme situations, decompensating and acting out.